Hello, welcome to another episode of the Periodic Table of Components. This is a podcast where I take board games into my lab and open the box and look through all the elements of your favorite board games. Today, I am excited to bring Red Rising to the table. Now, this is a set collection, some open drafting elements in here, dice rolling, a little bit of Take That. Overall, it is a very easy to learn game and very enjoyable game, especially if you are a fan of the novels by Pierce Brown, which this game is based off. So yeah, I'm ready to get this into the lab, and if you are interested in seeing pictures of this game, you can check out the Instagram page for this podcast. It is at Periodic Table Pics. All right, so Red Rising. Let's get into this. Before I get too far, I want to mention that it is designed by Jamie Stegmaier and Alexander Schmidt. The art is by Jackie Davis, Miles Binsky, and Justin Wong. It is published by Stonemaier Games. And again, it's based on the novels by Pierce Brown. The average playtime is 40 to 60 minutes. It plays 1 to 6 players and is recommended for ages 14 plus. All right, let's do it. Let's get Red Rising into the lab. All right, we're in the lab now and we have Red Rising on our table. We've got all the components splayed out for us. And I am going to start with the overview and goal of this game. So here we go. Enter the futuristic universe of Red Rising, based on the book series by Pierce Brown featuring a dystopian society divided into 14 castes. You represent a house attempting to rise to power as you piece together an assortment of followers. Will you break the chains of the society or embrace the dominance of the golds? Overview and goal. You begin each game with a hand of random characters from the Red Rising universe. You will manipulate this hand of cards throughout the game by deploying characters, activating abilities, and adding new characters to your hand. Whenever you acquire a new character, you will gain a special bonus based on the location from which you gained it. When certain thresholds are reached, the game ends. Calculate your final score from the combination of character cards in your hand, plus points for helium, sovereignty, the fleet track, and influence. Alright, now we're getting into the components of Red Rising. We have our components on our table here. We're going to start from the top according to the rulebook. We have 60 helium tokens, which are red gems. And these are associated with the Mars location on the game board. And these will give you victory points at the end of the game. Then we have 60 influence tokens in each player color, which are 10 in each 6 different colors. They are yellow, gold, green, blue, red, and violet. These will determine how many points you get from the Institute at the end of the game. Then we have 6 fleet tokens, 1 ship in 6 different colors. Yellow, gold, green, blue, red, and violet. These are pretty sweet looking spaceships that are going onto our fleet track. They're going to determine our location there, how we move, and each location has a different set amount of victory points you get at the end of the game for making it that far. That is the fleet tokens. Next is the 1 first player token for the Crescent Moon. And then we have 1 sovereign token, which is a stand depicting the sovereign. So this is associated with the Luna location. And essentially, whoever holds this sovereign token at the end of the game will get 10 victory points. Next, we have 112 character cards and multiple colors, which I will get into here shortly. And then we have 6 house tiles for each player color. There is yellow, which is House Apollo, gold, which is House Ceres, green, which is House Diana, blue, which is House Jupiter, red, House Mars, and violet, House Minerva. Next, we have a game board. It is a pretty small game board, but the art on it is quite intriguing. So what we have here is, in the middle, a location for the deck of cards. And then below that, we have a location for our Mars gem holder, which looks like a fox, or actually, we're going to go with wolf because wolves are more associated with the story. So we're going to go with a wolf. Next, we have the fleet track at the top left of the board, numbered 0 through 10. This is where you're putting those fleet tokens. Again, where you end at the end of the game is determining how many points you're going to get from that fleet track. So, starting with 0 and all the way up to 10. 0 gets you 0 points. 1 gets you 1. 2 will get you 3. 3 gets you 6. 4, 10. 5, 15. 6, 21. 7, 28. 8, 34. 9, 39. And 10, 43. Now, to the right of the fleet track, we have a rectangle depicting the Institute symbol. This is where you put the 60 influence tokens. Now, as you make influence in the Institute, determining how many points you get at the end of the game. So, you're trying to get more influence tokens at the Institute than the other players. Now we have 4 locations across the board. They are Jupiter, Mars, Luna, and the Institute. These are where you are going to be placing the cards of the game. Now on the far left is the blue Jupiter location with the fleet track symbol. This is how you are going to be moving up the fleet track. Next we have the red Mars location. This is associated with the helium tokens. Next we have the yellow Luna location, which is associated with the sovereign token. And then finally we have the green Institute, which will allow you to make influence at the Institute location with your cubes. Next is the scoreboard. The score pad. It is provided in the game and it's very helpful at in-game scoring. We have 1 custom rising die. One side has an X. Next has a helium token. Then we have an I. Then we have the fleet track symbol. We have an Institute symbol and the sovereign symbol. And I will get into what those all mean here in a minute. Lastly, we have 6 reference cards that are in each player color. You'll give these to the players of the game, and they are player aids that help you with setup, in-game scoring, the overview of the turns, and the iconology of the icons you will see throughout the game. I do want to mention there are other components that are associated with the solo game, but I will get into those when I go through the rules of the solo rules for Red Rising. Let's get into setup. Alright, we're getting into the setup of Red Rising. Starting with step 1. Place the board on the table. Shuffle the deck of character cards and place it face down on the board. Place the rising die next to the deck. Step 2. On each location, Jupiter, Mars, Luna, and the Institute, place 2 character cards from the deck face up. These cards overlap, so only the VP, name, and color of the covered cards are exposed. Note, Players may look at cards on locations at any time. Step 3. Draw 5 character cards from the deck to form your starting hand. Your hand of cards is kept private throughout the game. Next, gain a random house tile. Gain the reference card, fleet token, and influence tokens of the matching color. Then set up the rest of the board as indicated here. And they show a picture of the setup, but it's all pretty much self-explanatory. We have the board in the middle of the table with the helium tokens, the cards on their spot, the fleet track tokens on the fleet track at level 0, 2 cards on each location, and each player with their hand of 5 cards, their house tile, and the reference card and their cubes. Alright, step 4. Place your house's fleet token on the 0 space on the fleet track. Step 5. Place all helium tokens in the designated spot below the deck to create the supply. Step 6. Place the sovereign token nearby. This represents the leader of the society. Step 7. Start with your house's 10 influence tokens in your personal supply. You'll try to place them on the institute during the game. They have a bullet point for 2-player games. You're going to place 3 influence tokens of an unused house into the institute. This represents a neutral house, making in-game scoring more competitive. Lastly, step 8. If a player has House Apollo, which is the yellow house, give them the first player token. Otherwise, randomly select a player and give them the first player token. They can proceed to take their first turn. First player token will remain in that player's possession throughout the game. So if you are House Apollo, you are automatically the first person, otherwise determine that randomly. There is a designer note on this page from Jamie. It reads, Red Rising is one of my favorite book series ever. Years ago, I reached out to the author, Pierce Brown, to express my interest in the tabletop rights. They weren't available at the time, but that began a multi-year process of trying again, failing to design the game, accepting design submissions, and ultimately having a eureka moment while playing Fantasy Realms with Alex at my game night. A lot of design work with Alex, playtesting with the help of Stonemeyer ambassadors, and communications with Pierce and his team followed. This is my dream IP, and I'm incredibly excited to share this game with you. That was the setup. Now we're getting into the gameplay of Red Rising. On your turn, you must either use the lead or the scout action, resolving any effects or bonuses as described below. So like I just read, you have 2 options. You're going to lead or scout. So the lead action is you are selecting a card from your hand and deploying it face up on any location, covering all but the name, color, and core value of the topmost card at that location. If possible, trigger the deploy ability, which is the card symbol with an arrow at the top of the card played, unless it gives you the option not to. For example, in quotations, you may gain. They provide an example of deploying on a location. So when you deploy on a location, you complete the following. One of 2 options. You can A, gain the top card of a location that you did not deploy to this turn, then gain that location's bonus. Or you have the option to gain the top card of the deck, which is face down, then roll the rising die and gain the resulting bonus. Next will be the scout action, and you will reveal the top card of the deck and place, not deploy it, on any location, covering all but the name, color, and core value of the topmost card at that location. Gain that location's bonus. Players typically only choose to scout if they are completely satisfied with their hand. There are a couple notes on here. The 4 locations in the game are Jupiter, Mars, Luna, and the Institute. The deck is not a location. You may always look through the cards on each location, but they must remain in the same order. So when we get into location bonuses, which will be here in a minute, essentially you're putting a card on one location, deploying it if you have that ability, which will give you a special ability specific to the card you play. And then at another location, you will be picking up a card and you get that location bonus. So this is the most common action, but again, you have the option to scout, which is just revealing the top card and placing it, not deploying it, but you get the location bonus. Tune in a minute for the location bonus descriptions. For now, play continues clockwise until all players have had the same number of turns, and Apollo had their bonus turn after the end game is triggered. Some more notes regarding gameplay. Unless otherwise specified, the bonuses gained from leading and scouting are only triggered when taking those actions. Do not gain a locations bonus if you gain a card through other means. For example, if a character card says, gain the top card from Luna. Next is, the deploy abilities of some cards instruct you to end your turn. This indicates that you may not proceed to gain the top card of a location or the deck and the corresponding bonus. Next, the deploy abilities of some cards may move the card you've deployed to a different location. You are still considered to have deployed to the original location. Next is, some deploy abilities mention another location, referring to any other location than the one on which the card was deployed. The deploy ability of some cards may instruct you to deploy another card. As usual, deploy that card face up on any location and trigger its deploy ability, if any. This concludes the deployment. You may still perform the final step of the lead action only once. If it's not possible for you to use the deploy ability of a card, you may still deploy it and ignore the ability. If a card instructs you to move or place a card, it does not count as a deploy. 0 is an even number for cards that consider odd, even point values. Last note, deploy actions that result in a trade of resources may only be taken once per turn. Example, sponsor, and stockbroker. And then they provide some notes on edge cases of the game. So these situations are highly unlikely, but just in case you stumble upon them, here's what to do. If the deck runs out, if there are no cards in the deck simply ceases to be an option for players to draw from or interact with. If there are 0 cards in hand, if you have no cards in your hand, you can still either lead or scout on your turn. If you lead, skip the deploy portion of the lead action, as you have no card in hand to deploy. Let's roll into the anatomy of a character card, and then I'll get into the location bonuses and the rising die bonuses, and the house tiles and the sovereign token. So let's get into the anatomy of a character card. Alright, anatomy of a character card in Red Rising. Alright, so they are giving us 8 elements of the player cards. And every player card is a character from the story of Red Rising by Pierce Brown. The first thing on the card is at the top right. This is the name of the character. And each of these are unique to the cards. So the example they are giving, they have 2 of them here. Mickey the Carver and the Martyr. So at one on the top right, our first thing on the card is the name, Mickey the Carver. Next is the location 2 of the card, which is the color. So Mickey the Carver is a violet, which means he is an artist, and that is right below the name of the character. Next is location 3 of your card, which is at the top left. This is what they are calling the core value, or essentially in-game points. Location 4 is below the top left core value, and that is location 4. Characters this card wants solid and doesn't want X in hand. This is a visual reference for text elsewhere on the card. Essentially, what this is saying is some of these cards work well with or score points with other cards. So either another character or another color. So they're going to depict that color or character on that left banner there. Just giving you a quick reference on what other cards you want to get with that specific character. All right, location number 5 is the deploy ability. This is towards the bottom of the card under the picture of the character. And the symbol for the deploy ability, again, is a white rectangle that looks like a card with a arrow on top of it pointing up. So it looks like the deploy ability for Mickey the Carver is you may banish a red from your hand. If you do, reveal cards from the deck until you find a gold. Gain it and place the revealed cards at the bottom of the deck in any order. Okay, next location is location 6 of a card. These are in-game bonuses and points. They have a wreath depicting the victory points. If a card refers to colors or specific characters, example, if with a red, or if with no blues, or for each gold, it's referring to the other cards in your hand. So, for example, Mickey the Carver will give you 10 points if there is at least one banished red. We will get into being banished here in a minute. He will also give you 10 points if he is with a gold. Next is location 7. Some of these cards have a block ability, not all of them, and that is a shield symbol. This is an optional ability that requires you to reveal a card to prevent an opponent's attempt to do something to you. And the example they give is the Martyr, which if an opponent tries to take the Sovereign token from you, you may block them by revealing and banishing this card, and gain the top card of the deck. And then the last location of the card is at the very bottom, and this is the end of game ability. And the best way to describe this symbol is it looks like a triangle with a line that looks like when you're trying to skip to the next song on your old CD player. It looks exactly like that. And these are your end of game abilities, and you score these at obviously the end of the game. So the example they give is from Martyr. So at the end of the game, if you have the Sovereign token, gain one card of your choice from Mars. Couple notes on the anatomy of a character card. They say the color of a character card represents the cast of the character. To banish a card means to remove it from the game for now. There is an area near the board for banished cards, all face up and visible to players. Banished cards are in no particular order. To reveal a card means to show it to all opponents. Unless otherwise instructed, the card returns to your hand. All right, these are the location bonuses. Again, just to recap, when we were going through the gameplay, when you pull a card from a location on your turn, you're going to receive a location bonus. After you gain a card from one of the 4 locations during the lead action or place a card from the deck on a location during the scout action, you must also gain that location's bonus, if possible. So for the blue location, Jupiter, advance once on the fleet track. If you have reached the end of the fleet track, you may not advance further. Next is Mars. Gain 1 helium token. There's no limit to helium tokens. If the supply is empty, use a suitable replacement. Yellow, Luna. Gain or keep the Sovereign token. This triggers the bonus on your house tile. We will get into the house tiles in a minute. Next is the green, the Institute. Place one of your influence tokens on this location. If you've already placed all 10 of your tokens, you can't place more. Next, which is not a location, but worthy of note here, is the deck. the deck is not a location, but if you choose to draw a card from the deck instead of one of the 4 locations during the lead action, you roll the rising die, which grants you a mandatory bonus. The bonuses follow the same restrictions or allowances as noted above. Let's go ahead and get into the rising die. Alright, let's get into the rising die bonuses. Again, if you chose on your lead action to draw the card from the deck instead of taking a location card, you're going to roll this rising die. And again, the symbols on them are an X, an purple I symbol, yellow sovereign token symbol, the red Mars symbol, blue fleet track, and green institute. If you roll an X, you banish the top card of a location of your choice. If you roll the purple or violet I symbol, reveal the top card of the deck and place it, not deploy it, on any location. If you roll the yellow sovereign, you gain or keep the sovereign token. Red Mars symbol, you will get 1 helium token. Next, if you roll the blue fleet track symbol, advance once on the fleet track. If you roll a green institute symbol, place 1 influence on the institute. Pretty much all self-explanatory. Again, all those symbols are located on the player aids, which comes in handy if you forget what those mean. Alright, let's get into the house tiles and the sovereign token, which we talked about a little bit earlier. But remember that each house for the players gets specific abilities when they pull a card from the Luna location and take the sovereign token. So each house tile has an ability that is triggered whenever you gain the sovereign token, even if you already have it. Typically this will happen by gaining a card from Luna, but it also applies to any card ability from which you would gain the sovereign token, as well as rolling Luna on the rising die. First, gain the sovereign token, then trigger the ability. These houses' abilities are mandatory and not optional. House Apollo, the yellow. When you gain the sovereign token, you take the first and the last turns. Well, this is a note that the Apollo house takes the first and last turns. Has nothing to do with the die. But then they continue. Also, whenever you gain the sovereign token, even if you already have it, reveal and place, not deploy, the top card of the deck on any location. So that matches the I symbol of the rolling die. Alright. Then we have, or I should say rising die, not rolling die. Isn't that the purpose of the die is to roll it? Alright, let's get into house series. Alright, so when you gain the sovereign token and you are house series, you are going to, alright, whenever you gain the sovereign token, even if you already have it, banish any 1 card from a location of your choice at end of game before scoring. Banish 1 card from your hand. Also, there's a note at the top of the house card is you begin the game with +1 card. If you are the green House Diana, whenever you gain the sovereign token, even if you already have it, place 1 influence on this institute. Next is the green Jupiter. Back up. Blue Jupiter house card. And that is whenever you gain the sovereign token, even if you already have it, advance once on the fleet track. Next is the red Mars house tile. Whenever you gain the sovereign token, even if you already have it, gain 1 helium. Last house tile is the violet Minerva house. And whenever you gain the sovereign token, even if you already have it, roll the rising die and gain the corresponding bonus. If the result of the roll is the sovereign token, select any other bonus on the die. I do apologize for mixing up those colors there, but those are going to summarize the house tiles and the sovereign token. Alright, it's time to end the game of Red Rising. We need to score points. So, game end and scoring. The end of the game is triggered when all three of these conditions are met by any combination of players, or when any two conditions are met by the same player. And the magic number to remember is 7 here. So, if a player has 7 plus helium tokens, a player has 7 plus influence on the institute, or a player reaches or surpasses 7 on the fleet track. So again, when any of these three conditions are met by any combination of players, or two of them are met by the same player, that's the end of the game. What you do is you finish taking turns until each player has taken the same number of turns in the game. If Apollo is an active house, they take the last turn. This is an extra turn. Then you're going to use the score pad to tally each player's score step by step in this order. And let's back up a little bit. Let's take a little example they have in the book of the last round. So they have an example showing a table and A, B, and C, and D. So example, there are players A, B, C, and D sitting in a clockwise order. Player A is House Apollo, so they took the first turn. Player B triggered the end of the game, so players C and D each get one more turn. Then, because of their ability to take the last turn, Apollo, player A, takes one last turn. And they have those letters in clockwise orders on the picture themselves. Alright, going back to the score pad. You're going to score this step by step in this order. It's going to be at the end of the game abilities, then your character cards, which include core value and in-game bonus points, then the fleet track, then the helium track, sovereignty, influence, and then excess cards. Alright, and at end of game abilities, again, those are depicted by, I'm calling it the play next song symbol, because that's what it looks like. Alright, starting with the first player, trigger all of your end of game abilities in an order of your choosing. Continue clockwise with the next player until all players have triggered these abilities. Only orange and gray cards have at end of game abilities. Cards of the same color have the same at end of game ability. They provide two examples here. They have the orange Razor Designer. It says you may treat this card as if its name alone is the same as a specific character. This text, seen on an orange card, lets you seen on orange cards, lets you change the name of the card to another character's name. So if you have a card that scores points, if it's with Darrow, but you don't have Darrow, you can rename an orange card Darrow to score those points. Otherwise, all other aspects of the orange card stay the same. For example, you don't also copy the Darrow character card's points and ability. You do not score extra points for having multiple cards with the same name. The second example they give is a gray card. His name is Holiday, and it says you may treat this card as if it is any one other color, in addition to gray. This text, seen on gray cards, lets you treat each gray card as an additional color. For example, to score more points if a card needs or values another color. That was the at end of game abilities. Next, you're going to tally up your points from character cards, which include the core value and in-game bonus points. So you're going to look at the cards in your hand, add together the core value of each card located at the upper left, and points gained or lost from in-game bonus points, which is at the bottom of the card. They provide 4 examples here. So we have the janitor, and it says for each. This scores points for each card in hand of the listed types. For example, if the card says 5 points for each green, yellow, and blue, and you have 2 green cards, no yellow cards, and 1 blue card, you would score 15 points. Then we have the garden trained rose, and it says if with / if with no. This scores points if you do or don't have a certain card type or character in hand. It's a binary condition. If it says 14 points, if with a silver, you score 14 points total if you have one or more silvers. Next is the bridge, which is a gray card for each color on all locations. Unlike most in-game scoring, these in-game bonuses look at cards remaining on locations on the board, not cards in your hand. Lastly, we have banished cards. They show the Ash Lord card. A few in-game bonuses refer to the pile of cards that were banished during the game. It doesn't matter which player banished these cards. And that was scoring from your character cards, the core value, and in-game bonus points. Next, we have scoring the fleet track. Fairly simple. Score points based on your position on the fleet track, 0 to 43 points, depending on where you are at. Next is scoring your helium. You gain 3 points per helium token. Next is the sovereignty. You gain 10 points if you have this sovereign token. Next is the influence. The player or players with the most influence at the Institute location gain 4 points for each of their influence there. The player with the second most influence at the Institute gain 2 points per influence. All other players gain 1 point per influence. Note that in a 2-player game, 3 non-player influence tokens start on the Institute. The 2 players will include those 3 tokens in the in-game comparison as if they were the influence of a third house. For example, Jamie and Megan each have 10 influence tokens on the Institute. Biddy has 5, and Walter has 2. Jamie and Megan would each gain 40 points, Biddy would gain 10 points, and Walter would gain 2 points. Next is the excess cards. For each card in your hand beyond the 7th card, you lose 10 points. At this time, you've already accounted for other points from these cards. Those points are still valid. This penalty represents the unwillingness of managing a larger house and encourages players to focus on cards that work well together, not simply more cards. So, for example, if you have 9 cards in your hand, you would lose 10 VP for the 8th card and 10 VP for the 9th card. Lastly, the player with the highest score wins the game. A great final score is 300 plus points. If there is a tie for first place, the tied player with the sovereign token wins. If no tied player has a sovereign token, share the victory. All right, that's going to wrap up the rules for Red Rising. I do want to touch on something else. So, based on the book here, you are playing as 14 casts in this game on your character cards. And essentially, in the book series, the lowest cast is the red, and kind of going up a pyramid that they show on the back of the rule book is pretty cool to look at if you are familiar with the book series. So at the bottom you have the reds, the next tier are the browns, the obsidians, and then the pinks. Then you have the grays in the next tier. Following that, in the next tier, we have the blues, the yellows, the greens, the violets, and oranges. Next is, on the next upper tier, we have the silvers, the whites, and the coppers. And at the very top, we have the golds. The color-based societal structure of the dystopian Red Rising world is an allegory for the racial struggles of the past and present in the real world. It's a cautionary tale of what can happen when people are judged by the color of their skin instead of the content of their character. They offer some, and that is straight from the rule book. They also include in the back a want to watch a how to play video, a link for that. If you want rules in another language, they give you directions for that. If you have a question while playing or a story to share, they would like to hear from you. And then if you need replacement parts, and they offer a URL for that. And then if you want to explore the world of Red Rising, they tell you the website for Pierce Brown. Again, this was published by Stonemaier Games. In 2014, that was 2014 as Pierce Brown published the books. This game, I believe, came out in 2021. So that's what I get for reading straight from the book here. But again, 2014 for Pierce Brown. All rights are reserved. And then this game was published in 2021. All right, so now we're going to get into the cards here that are provided in this game, go into the characters. This is one of my favorite things to do is to look at each individual card, but there are 112 characters here. So let's see how this goes. But first, let's start with the player aids that people are going to get for each color. They are all the same other than the color they are associated with. It's going to give us a turn overview. So on your turn, either lead or scout. Lead. Deploy a card from your hand face up on a location, triggering its deploy ability, if any, then do one of the following. Gain the top card from another location, then gain that location's bonus. Gain the top card of the deck, then roll the rising die and gain the resulting bonus. Scout. Reveal the top card of the deck and place, not deploy it on any location. Gain that location's bonuses, or gain that location's bonus. Then the iconology of the is provided. So the blue ship, advance once on the fleet track. In-game value is VP on the track. The red Mars symbol is gain 1 helium, 3 VP for each. The sovereign token, which is yellow, gain or keep the sovereign token, and it is worth 10 VP at the end of the game. Then we have the green Institute symbol. Place 1 influence on the Institute. At the end of the game, the value is 4 for the most, 2 for the second, and 1 for the third person with the most influence there. And those are victory points per influence token. And then it gives you the symbol for at end of game abilities. They give you the symbol, which is an X, banish the top card of a location. Then the I symbol, which is violet, reveal the top card of the deck and place, not deploy it on any location. And then they show this shield symbol, which is block an opponent's attempt. On the back side of the card or the other side, they show you the setup instructions. So it's shuffle the deck and place it on the board, along with the rising die. Place 2 face-up cards on each location. Each player draws 5 cards, then gain a random house tile and the corresponding 10 influence tokens. Place your fleet token on the 0 space of the fleet track. And then it goes into end of game. The game ends when all 3 of these conditions are met by any player, or any 2 conditions are met by the same player. A player has 7 plus helium. A player has 7 plus influence on the Institute. A player reaches 7 plus on the fleet track. Finish taking turns until each player has taken the same number of turns in the game. If Apollo is an active house, they take the last turn. This is an extra turn. During in-game scoring for each card in your hand beyond the 7th card, you will lose 10 VP. Those are your player aid cards. Very helpful. Alright, now we're getting into the character cards. I'm going to break this down by color, and I thought it would be fun to follow the cast of the story. So we're going to start at the bottom with the reds. And we have 7 reds. First one I'm looking at is Harmony, which is worth 7 points at the end of the game. Again, these are all red, so I'm not going to tell the color of each one. And red denotes a laborer. So Harmony, worth 7 points. Her deploy ability is an opponent of your choice loses 1 helium. You will get 33 points if with only reds, pinks, and browns, and or obsidians. Then we have Dancer, worth 8. He is a laborer. You gain 1 helium This is the deploy ability. Gain 1 helium if you have 2 or more other reds. Reveal them to gain 2 more helium. He'll get 11 points if with no grays, or 11 points if with no golds. Next we have Deanna, worth 9 points. Your deploy ability is gain 1 helium, and then 26 points at the end of the game if with another red. Next we have Uncle Nerl. When you deploy him, you will gain 2 helium. And then at the end of the game, 40 points if with only cards having core values of 10 points or less. Next we have Arliss, worth 10 points. Deploying him will allow you, each neighboring player reveals a random card from their hand. If it is a gold, banish that card. If it is a red, banish Arliss. And he's worth 25 points if with no golds at the end of the game. Next, we have our lead character from the story, Darrow. And his deploy ability is gain any other non-gold from this location. Banish Darrow unless you deployed him on a gold. And then he will give you 30 points if you have 7 or more cards at the end of the game, including Darrow. Last red is Io, worth 10 points. And she will allow you this ability. When you deploy her, each opponent must reveal a red. If they can't, they lose 1 helium. She's worth 10 points for each other red at the end of the game, and minus 10 points if with a gray, except Bridge. Alright, the next cast in the story of Red Rising are the pinks. And looks like we have 7 pinks. First one I'm looking at is Mateo. He is worth 13 points. And deploy. Move any other card from this location to the top of another location. If it's a pink, place 1 influence token on the Institute. $17 or 17 points if with a pink or Quicksilver. Next is Masseuse. Worth 14 points, and deploying him will, or her, move the top card of another location to the top of a different location, gain the original location bonus for that card, worth 16 points if with a copper. Next is the Conversationalist, worth 15 points. Deploying, move the top card from another location to under this card. If it's a white, gain it. Worth 15 points if with a white. Next we have Evie, worth 15 points. Deploying ability, banish Evie and all cards at this location. For each gold banished, place 1 influence token on the Institute, with a maximum of 3. Worth 15 if with Darrow, or minus 15 if with Mickey. Next is Calliope. Deploying ability, reveal the top card of the deck, then deploy it face up on another location, worth 20 if with the Jackal. Next is Theodora, worth 16. Deploy ability, you may move the bottom card of this location on top of this card. If it's a gold or red, gain it, then end your turn. Worth 14 if with a gold or red, but not both. Next is Garden Trained Rose. Deploy ability, move the card directly under this one to the top of another location. If it's a silver, gain 1 helium. Worth 14 points if with a silver. Alright, now we are looking at the Obsidians, which are assassins. And there are 7 of the Obsidians. First one is Alfrin, worth 10 points. Deploy ability, you may gain Nero or Jofo from this location. If you do, regain Alfrin and end your turn. Worth 10 points if with Nero, 10 points if with Jofo. Alright, Jofo, or maybe it is Jaffo. You may gain Alfrin or Nero from this location. If you do, regain Jaffo and end your turn. That is the deploy ability. 10 if with Alfrin, 10 if with Nero. Helga, worth 14 points. Deploy ability. Banish the card directly under this one. If it was the only other card on this location, gain 1 helium. 16 if with Pax a Telemanus or the Pax. Stained, worth 15 points. Deploy ability. Banish any other card from this location. If it's an obsidian, place 1 influence on the Institute. End game. 15 if this is your only obsidian. Aaliyah, Snow Sparrow, worth 16 points. Deploy ability. Banish the top non-gold card from any other location. If it's not gray or obsidian, gain 1 helium. End game, 24 if only with golds, grays, and or obsidians. Next is Ragnar, worth 20 points. Deploy ability. Banish the top card of another location. If it's a gold or a gray, place 1 influence on the Institute. Endgame, 10 if with an orange, or 10 if with Sephi. Next is Sephi, worth 20 points. Deploy ability. Gain another obsidian from this location. Worth 20 at the end of the game if with Ragnar, or -5 for each gold. And -5 for each gold. Next card color are the browns, which are assistants. First one is the Assassin. Deploy ability. Banish the card directly under this one. If it's a gold, place 1 influence on the Institute. Worth 10 points at the end of the game for each obsidian. Next we have the Mess Hall Cook. Deploy. If deployed directly on top of a gray or orange, move that card to the top of another location and advance once on the fleet track. 5 points for each gray and orange. Next we have the Artisan Chef. Deploy. If deployed directly on top of a gold, move that gold to the top of another location and place 1 influence on the Institute. 5 points for each gold. Ignore any lost points from golds. Gardener, worth 10 points. Deployed. If deployed directly on top of a violet or pink, move that card to the top of another location and gain 1 helium. 5 points for each violet and pink. Janitor. Deployed. If deployed directly on top of a green, yellow, or blue, move that card to the top of another location and advance once on the fleet track. I forgot to mention that he's worth 10 points by himself. The end game bonus would be 5 for each green, yellow, and blue. Next is Mod Job. So his deploy ability is deployed directly on top of a red or brown. Deploy that card to the top of another location. 5 points for each red and brown, including Mod Job. Next is Nanny, worth 10 points. Ability, if deployed directly on top of a silver, white, or copper, move that card to the top of another location and gain 1 helium. 5 points for each silver, white, and copper. Alright, now we are looking at the grays, which are the security cast. Now, the first one is Danto or Danto, worth 10 points. His ability is move a copper or white from any location to directly under this card. You may gain that card. If you do, end your turn. Then at the end of the game, you may treat this card as if it is any one other color. In addition to gray, worth 5 points for each copper and white on all locations. Next is Colonel Valentin, worth 10 points. His deploy ability is move a gold from any location to directly under this card. You may gain that card. If you do, end your turn. End game ability, you may treat this card as if it is any one other color in addition to gray. 5 points for each gold on all locations. Next is Holiday. Deploy ability is move an orange or blue from any location to directly under this card. You may gain that card. If you do, end your turn. They are worth 15 points. End-game ability is you may treat this card as if it is any one other color, in addition to gray, and 5 points for each orange and blue on all locations. Next is Sun Hua, worth 15 points. Ability, move an obsidian or green from any location to directly under this card. You may gain that card. If you do, end your turn. End-game ability. You may treat this card as if it is any one other color, in addition to gray. 5 points for each obsidian and green on all locations. Next is Trig, worth 15 points. Ability is move a gray or yellow from any location to under this card. You may gain that card. If you do, end your turn. Like the others, the end-game ability is you may treat this card as if it is any one other color in addition to gray. 5 points for each gray and yellow on all locations. Next, we are looking at Bridge, worth 15 points. He allows you to move a pink or violet from any location to directly under this card. You may gain that card. If you do, end your turn. You may treat this card as if it is any one other color in addition to gray. 5 points for each pink and violet on all locations. Next, we have Ugly Dan, worth 20 points. Move a red or brown from any location to under this card. You may gain that card. If you do, end your turn. End-game ability is you may treat this card as if it is any one other color in addition to gray. 5 points for each red and brown on all locations. Alright, now we have 7 orange cards, which are our engineers. First one up is the Artificer, worth 10 points. Deploy ability, you may gain a gold or any other orange from this location. If you do, end your turn. End game, you may treat this card as having the same name as any specific character, worth 20 if with both an orange and a gold. Next is the Pulse Fist Engineer, worth 12 points. You may gain an obsidian from this location. If you do, end your turn. Endgame, you may treat this card as having the same name as any specific character, worth 18 if with an obsidian. Next is the Pulse Armorer, worth 13. Deploy ability, you may gain a gray from this location. If you do, end your turn. Then you may treat this card as having the same name as any specific character, or 17 if with a gray. Next we have Scyther. Then his deploy ability, let's back up, he's worth 14 points. Deploy ability, you may gain a blue from this location. If you do, end your turn. You may treat this card as having the same name as any specific character, worth 16 if with a blue. Then we have the Aegis Craftsman, worth 15. Deploy ability, you may gain a gold from this location. If you do, end your turn. You may treat this card as having the same name as any specific character. 10 points if with a gold, 10 points if with no obsidians. Then we have the Grav Boot Cobbler, worth 16. Deploy ability, you may gain a gold or gray from this location. If you do, end your turn. You may treat this card as having the same name as any specific character, worth 14 if with a gold or gray. Now we have the Razor Designer, worth 17 points on its own. Then you're going to have the deploy ability of you may gain a gold from this location. If you do, end your turn. You may treat this card as having the same name as any specific character at the end game ability, and get an additional 13 points if with a gold and no obsidians. Alright, our violets, there's 7 of them. First on up is the Reporter, worth 6 points. Deploy ability, if you have more helium than the player to your right, give them the Reporter. Gain the top 2 cards of the deck, then end your turn. You're going to get additional 29 points if you have the most helium, or tied for the most. Next is the vlogger. And just to back up, our violets are our artist of the story. So yes, the vlogger, we're 7 points. Deployability. If you're further on the fleet track than the player to your right, give them the vlogger. Gain the top 2 cards of the deck, then end your turn. End game. 23 points if you are the furthest on the fleet track or tied for the furthest. Next artist is the musician, worth 8 points. Move a card with an even core value from this location to the top of another location. At the end of the game, worth 32 points if the core value of each of your cards is an even number. Next, we have the 4D painter, worth 9 points. Deployability, move a card from this location to the top of another location where there are no cards with the same color as it. An additional 31 points at the end of the game if each of your cards is a different color. Then we have Zanzibar, worth 9 points. You can move a card with an odd core value from this location to the top of another location. An additional 31 points if the core value of each of your cards is an odd number. Next, we have the Hollow Host, worth 12 points. Deploy it if you have more influence on the Institute than the player to your right. Give them the Hollow Host. Gain the top 2 cards of the deck, then end your turn. An additional 18 points if you have the most influence on the Institute or tied for the most. Lastly, and our Violet Artist, Mickey the Carver, worth 15 points. You may banish a red from your hand. If you do, reveal cards from the deck until you find a gold. Gain it and place the revealed cards at the bottom of the deck in any order. An additional 10 points if there is at least one banished red. Also 10 if with a gold. All right, we are looking at our greens. These are our programmers. First one up is the Hollow Designer, worth 7. Deploy. If deployed on Luna, reveal the top 2 cards of the deck and place them under this card in any order. Plus 28 points if with a violet. Next is our Online Gambler, worth 7 points. Deploy it. You name 3 colors, then reveal the top card of the deck. If it matches a color you named, gain it and banish this card. Otherwise, banish the revealed card. Endgame ability. Name 1 non-gold color, reveal 7 cards from the top of the deck, and gain all cards of that color. Shuffle and return the other cards to the top of the deck. Next up is Codebreaker, worth 8 points. Deploy ability. Reveal the bottom card of the deck. If it's a gold or silver, leave it there. Otherwise, gain it. Banish Codebreaker unless you deployed it on top of a gold or silver. An additional 22 points if the first letter of the names of your cards are all different. Next is the Developer, worth 9 points. Deploy ability. You may gain any other card from this location. If you do, end your turn. Then it has the in-game points as a question mark, and it says gain the core value of the top card of any location. Next is our Data Port Specialist, and then his victory point worth is 9 points. Deploy ability. If deployed on Jupiter, reveal the top 2 cards of the deck and place them under this card in any order. An additional 26 points if with a blue. Next is the Firewall Expert, worth 13 points. Deploy ability. Look at the top 3 cards of the deck. Place one of them face down at the top of each location. These cards are considered colorless while they are face down. An additional 22 points if there is at least one location with no cards or where the top card is face down. Lastly, we have the Hacker, worth 15 points. Deploy ability. Reveal the top card of the deck. either banish it or place, not deploy it, to the top of another location. In-game ability, reveal the top card of the deck. Gain points equal to that card's core value. Alright, let's look at our yellows. These are our doctors. First one is the surgeon, worth 0 points. Deploy ability, you may banish a non-gold from your hand and gain a banished gold. In-game ability is gain any one banished gold, and then you're going to get 5 points for each gold. Next we have the pathologist, which is worth 5 points. You're going to banish the bottom card of this location if it's not this card on your deploy ability. You're going to get an additional 10 points if there are 5 to 9 banished cards at the beginning of in-game scoring. You will get an additional 25 points if there are at least 10 banished cards at the beginning of in-game scoring. Next is Dr. Virony, worth 9 points. Deploy ability, if deployed on Mars, reveal the top 2 cards of the deck and place them under this card in any order. The in-game ability is you may gain any number of these banished cards: Victra, Severo, Fitchner, and any reds. Next is the researcher, worth 13 points. Deploy ability, place a random banished card at the bottom of this location. An additional 17 points if there are 4 or fewer banished cards at the beginning of in-game scoring. Next is the hypnotist, worth 15 points. Deploy ability, in clockwise order starting with you, each player selects a card from their hand, banishes it, and gains the top card of the deck. In-game ability is banish one other card from your hand and gain the top card of the deck. Next is our psychologist. She is going to allow you to, on your deploy ability, you may place and not deploy 1 or 2 banished cards on the top of one location. She's worth 20 points if I didn't mention that. At the end of the game, if you have the fewest cards in hand, ties do count, gain 1 random banished card. Last yellow is our group counselor, worth 35 points. Deploy ability, choose up to 3 banished cards and place each of them either on the top or bottom of the deck. At the end of the game, you're going to get -1 point per banished card. Right, next we have 7 blues. These are our pilots in the story. First up, we have Pellis, worth 5 points. Deploy ability is advance twice on the fleet track, then all other players advance once on the fleet track. At the end of the game, if your fleet track position is 5 to 7, you get an additional 20 points. If your fleet track position is 8 to 10, you'll get an additional 35 points. Next is Virga, worth 10 points. Deploy ability, advance twice on the fleet track, then all other players advance once on the fleet track. An additional 15 points if your fleet track position is 6 to 8, and 30 points if your fleet track position is 9 or 10. Next is Quietus, worth 14 points. Deploy ability, if deployed on the Institute, advance once on the fleet track. Worth 16 points if you have the most influence on the Institute or tied for the most. Next is Orion, worth 18 points. Deploy ability, if this is deployed on Mars, Luna, or the Institute, deploy 1 other blue from this location to Jupiter. An additional 10 points if with Pax a Telemanus or the Pax. And then you get a certain amount of victory points, the question mark. It says gain points equal to your position on the fleet track, 0 to 10. And those correspond with your location on the track, 0 to 10. And then the associated victory points with that. Next we have Invictus, worth 19 points. Deployability, if deployed on Mars, advance once on the fleet track. In-game scoring, if you are the most advanced on the fleet track or tied for the most, you'll get an additional 16 points. If an opponent is more advanced than you on the fleet track, you will get a negative 9 points. Next we have the Pax. So deployability, he's worth 20 points. And the deploy ability is if deployed on Luna, advance once on the fleet track. Then additional 15 points if with Darrow, Severo, Orion, Virga, or Pellis. Last blue is Morningstar, worth 35 points. Deploy ability, if deployed on Jupiter, advance once on the fleet track. At the end of the game, you'll get a minus 15 points unless he is with Orion, Virga, or Pellis. All right, next cards are our coppers, which are our bureaucrats. And there are 7 of these bad boys. First one up is Timony, worth 10 points. Deployability is for each gold at the Institute, place 1 influence token there. And then in-game, 3 points for each of your influence tokens on the Institute. Next up is our Auctioneer, worth 12 points. Deploy ability, choose an opponent. That opponent chooses 1. Gain 1 helium, advance on the fleet track, or place 1 influence on the Institute. You gain both other options. Again, that opponent is only choosing 1 of those. At the end of the game, the ability is you can gain 1 helium, advance once on the fleet track, or place 1 influence on the Institute. One of those. Next up is the Lawyer, worth 13 points. Deployability is simply place 1 influence on the Institute. End of the game, you get an additional 12 points if with a white, but not the judge, or 22 points if with the judge. The Politician, worth 15 points. You may reveal 2 golds from your hand. If you do, place 2 influence on the Institute. That was the deploy ability. End of the game, an additional 15 points if you have the most influence on the Institute, or tied for the most. Next up is the Administrator, worth 15 points. Deploy ability, if deployed on the Institute, reveal the top 2 cards of the deck and place them under this card in any order. An additional 15 points if you have the least influence on the Institute or tied for the least. Next is the Diplomat, worth 16 points. Deployability, you and an opponent of your choice may place 1 influence on the Institute, worth an additional 19 points if you and any opponent have the exact same amount of influence on the Institute. All right, our last copper here. So his name is Bondulus, worth 20 points. Deployability, if deployed on Mars, banish 1 non-gold from this location. An additional 5 points if you have the Sovereign token, and another 5 if with a gold. All right, now we are getting into the whites, which are the arbitrators. And the first one up is the Judge, worth 10 points. And the ability is not a deploy ability. These are the blocking abilities. So when an opponent tries to steal or banish any of your cards, reveal this to block them. At the end of the game, you can get 3 points for each of your cards. Next is Justice, worth 15 points. Block ability. You may reveal this whenever an opponent tries to take the Sovereign token from you. If you do, banish this card to keep the token, then gain the top card of the deck. Endgame ability. If you have the Sovereign token, gain 1 card of your choice from Luna. Next is the Martyr, worth 15 points. Block ability. If an opponent tries to take the Sovereign token from you, you may block them by revealing and banishing this card, then gain the top card of the deck. Endgame ability. If you have the Sovereign token, gain 1 card of your choice from Mars. Alright, our next is the Orator, worth 19 points, and they have a deploy ability, not block. So the deploy ability is if you have the Sovereign token, place 1 influence on the Institute. And you get an additional 21 points if you don't have the Sovereign token. Next is the Seer, worth 19 points. The deploy ability is if you have the Sovereign token, reveal the top card of the deck and place, not deploy it, on another location. If you have the Sovereign token, you will get 11 points at the end of the game. And just to clarify, that is in addition to the 10 points you would have gotten for having the token also. So you get an additional 11 for that Seer. Alright, we're getting into the Magistrate, worth 20 points. Deploy ability. If you have the Sovereign token, gain 1 helium. Alright, at the end of the game, 15 points if you have at least 3 helium, 3 influence on the Institute, and at least level 3 on the fleet track. And our last white is the Priestess, worth 20 points. Deploy ability, if you have the Sovereign token, advance once on the fleet track. And then, in game, an additional 20 points if with only cards having core values of at least 20 points. Alright, we're getting into the silvers now, which are financiers. And the first one up, actually we have 7 of these to start off, but the first one is the Banker, and he's worth 10 points. The deploy ability is you may pay 3 helium to gain any card from this location. If you do, banish Banker. In-game ability, you may pay 3 helium to gain the top card of any location. Next is the Stock Broker, worth 10 points. Deploy ability, you may lose 1 influence from the Institute. If you do, gain 2 helium, worth 5 points for each helium at the end of the game, and you can only have a maximum of 25 points from that. Next is our CEO, worth 12 points. Deploy ability is you may regress once on the fleet track. If you do, you gain 2 helium, worth 18 points if you have at least 5 helium at the end of the game. Next is the Loan Shark, worth 13 points. Deploy ability, choose an opponent. They may give you 2 helium to immediately take 1 turn out of order, but may not gain Loan Shark before you finish your turn. Otherwise, they must give you 1 helium. At the end of the game, 7 points if you have at least 7 cards. The Investor, worth 15 points. Deploy ability, choose a color other than silver. Gain 1 helium for each card of that color at this location. End of game, choose a color other than silver and gain 1 helium for each card of that color on Mars. Next is the Sponsor. Deploy ability, you may pay 1 helium to place 2 influence on the Institute. An additional 2 points for each of your influence tokens on the Institute at the end of the game. Now we have the Quicksilver, worth 40 points. And the deploy ability is still 1 helium from the opponent with the most helium. If tied, you choose which of those opponents. You will get a minus 30 points if any opponent has more helium than you at the end of the game. Alright, we are closing up the card clarifications, and we are ending with the top dogs and Red Rising. These are the golds. Now, unlike all the other colors of the cards, these have 21 of them. So we're going to go through 21 gold cards. The golds are the Elite. The very first one is Lysander, worth 10 points. Deploy ability is gain the top card of the deck. Banish Lysander unless you deployed him on Luna. 20 points if you have the sovereign token Octavia or Cassius at the end of the game. Next is the Jackal, worth 10 points. Deploy ability, gain the sovereign token, worth 30 if you have the sovereign token, and then minus 30 if with Darrow or Octavia. Next are the Bone Riders, worth 15. Deploy ability, gain the sovereign token, an additional 15 points if with the Jackal or a Gray. Next is Antonia, worth 15 points. Deploy ability, choose an opponent, they banish one of their cards, then banish Antonia. Worth an additional 15 points if with the Jackal or 2 other golds, and minus 10 points if with Victra or Severo. Next is Aja, worth 15 points. Deploy ability, choose an opponent. They banish one of their cards, then banish Aja, worth 15 points if with Octavia at the end of the game. Next we have Karnus, worth 15 points. Deploy ability, banish the card directly under this one. If the banished card is Mustang, the Jackal, or Nero, you may also choose an opponent. If you do, they banish one of their cards. An additional 30 points if with Cassius, minus 15 points if with Mustang, the Jackal, or Nero. Next we have Severo, worth 15 points. Deploy ability, banish the card directly under this one. You may reveal the Howlers to instead gain that card. 20 points if with Victra, the Howlers, or a red. Next is Pax a Telemanus, worth 15 points. Has a block ability. When an opponent tries to steal or banish your cards, reveal this to block them. 20 points if with an Obsidian or Mustang. Next is the Telemanuses, worth 20 points. Deploy ability, move all cards under this card from this location to the top of another location in the same order. 15 points if with Pax a Telemanus or the Pax. Next is Lorne. Deploy ability. If the card directly under this one is a gold, banish that card. Forgot to mention, he is worth 20 points. And then at the end of the game, 15 points if with no other golds. Next is Victra, worth 20 points. Deploy ability. Gain the bottom card of this location. If it's not this card, banish Victra unless you deployed her on a gold. An additional 10 points if with the Howlers, and 10 points if with Severo or Darrow. Next is Rogue. Worth 20 points, and I pronounced that incorrectly. I would say R-O-Q-U-E, Rock or Roke. Let's go with Roke. Worth 20 points. Deploy ability. Look at an opponent's hand, name a card, then randomly select a card from their hand. If you select the named card, banish it and banish Roke. 5 points for each blue. Alright, next we have Mustang, worth 20 points. Deploy ability. Gain 1 banished card. If that card is not a gold, banish Mustang. 5 points for each different color at the end of the game. Alright, the Howlers, worth 20 points. They have a block ability of when an opponent tries to steal or banish your cards, reveal this to block them. Worth 15 points if with Severo. Next is Tactus, worth 20 points. Deploy ability, you may steal 1 card from an opponent. They choose the card. If you do, banish Tactus and end your turn. 20 points if with Octavia, Darrow, or a pink. Cassius, worth 25 points. Deploy ability, gain the card directly under this one. Banish Cassius unless that card is a gold. 40 points if with both Mustang and Darrow, and minus 20 points if with Darrow but not Mustang. Alright, Nero, 25 points. Deployability, gain 1 helium for each red at this location. In-game, 10 points if you have the Sovereign token, minus 5 each for Cassius, Garnus, and Octavia. Next is Fitchner, worth 25 points. Deployability, if deployed to the Institute, place 1 influence there. 10 points if with a red, 10 points if with Severo at the end of the game. Ash Lord. Deployability, banish all blues from this location. If this banishes 2 or more blues, regain Ash Lord. At the end of the game, you get 5 points for each blue and 5 points for each banished blue. Next is Romulus, worth 25 points. Deploy ability, gain 1 blue from this location. Banish Romulus unless you deployed him directly on top of a gold. At the end of the game, 15 points if you have the Sovereign token. Minus 25 points if with Roke or Octavia or without a blue. Alright, our last gold, worth 30 points. Octavia. Deploy ability. If you have the Sovereign token, gain the bottom card on Luna, if it's not this card. Banish Octavia unless that card is a gold. And you will get minus 30 points if you don't have either the Sovereign token or Lysander. That wraps up the 112 colored cards and Red Rising. Alright, now we are getting into the Tall Atama portion of Red Rising, the solo rules for Red Rising. It is designed by Morton Monrad Peterson with Liev Tugels, Israel Waldrom, and Ben L. Montgomery. The introduction. This rulebook introduces a system for adding an artificial player called Tall Atama, who allows you to play Red Rising solo as if it was a 2-player game. While Tall Atama is a player in the game, she plays by simpler rules. For example, she ignores almost everything on character cards. Any rule not explicitly overridden in this rulebook is still in effect, which includes you following the normal multiplayer rules. Designer's note: Tall Atama is the latest member of the Atama species, a series of artificial opponents all following the same design principles. Their name comes from the Italian word Atama, which means automaton, since the first of them played in a game set in Italy. The components are 22 Atama cards, 4 priority cards, 1 double-sided Luna bonus card, 1 double-sided odd, even, and scoring card, and 2 double-sided Atama player aid cards. The anatomy of an Atama card. Atama cards are divided into sections and elements that will be explained as needed. They do give you a visual example, so it's broken down into 3 sections that run horizontally for us. They have a deploy character section, a gain character section, and an extra section. They give you the visual reminder to deploy or gain a card. So the deploy is the same as in multiplayer, the rectangle with an arrow pointing up. The gain section will give us a rectangle with a down arrow depicting the gain character. Now, on the right side of each of these sections is a symbol depending on which card it is. It will differ. So on the deploy character section, it will give you the location to deploy the character for the Atama, and then the gain character section will tell you where they gain the character from, what location. And then it has an arrow for location tiebreakers, which we will get into. And then at the very bottom, some of the cards have a bonus indicator for the Automa. And we are going into the setup and gameplay, so let's roll right into that. Alright, let's get into the setup for a solo game. So before doing any of the normal setup steps of a two-player game, you're going to do this. You're going to shuffle the 22 normal Automa cards to form the face-down Automa deck and set the topmost 4 off to the side for later use. So those are the ones with a green back on them, and you're going to remove 4 of those for later use. You're going to shuffle the 4 priority cards and place one face up at the top of each location. So these priority cards determine the priority of the cards the Automa is going to be either deploying to or picking from. They are essentially a black card with an A, B, C, and D on them. You shuffle those up, place them on each location randomly. So A is the highest priority, and Automa will use that location most often, while D is the lowest priority, corresponding to the location she will use the least. And then step 3, tuck the Luna bonus card below the priority card at Luna so that only one of the card's icon is visible. So this essentially is going to determine what the Automa gets if they go to the Luna location. And you have a card that has the other 3 symbols on it. So it has a Mars symbol, a Fleet Track symbol, and an Institute symbol on that. So determining on the placement of those priority cards, the A, B, C, and D, determines what symbol you are going to put on Luna with this, what they are calling the Luna bonus card. So A, if Luna has the A priority card, then the visible icon should be the icon of the location that has the D priority card and vice versa. B, if Luna has the B priority card, then the visible icon should be the icon of the location that has the C priority card and vice versa. So, depending on where that priority card was placed on Luna, if it was A, B, C, or D, determines what other symbol you are going to put there, reminding you what the Automa will get. So they provide an example. B and C are a Luna pair. So since Luna is C priority, the Luna bonus card should show the icon of the B priority location, which in this case is the Institute. And in this picture, they have A on Jupiter, D on Mars, C on Luna, and B on the Institute as far as those priority cards. And so since C is on Luna, you are going to put the symbol of B, which is the Institute, on the Luna location. Now you're going to remove the following character cards from the game. The Auctioneer, which is a copper, EO, red, Loan Shark, silver, Psychologist, yellow, and Roke, gold from the game. Alright, now there is a note that there's a variant for adding most of them back in. See the variant. And these, if you are familiar with this game and you've played it a couple times, adding those cards back in is not going to add too much complexity. But if you are first playing the solo game for the first time, I do recommend pulling those out. Next, set up the rest of the game as normal with these changes. 5. Automa starts with a hand or deck of 2 character cards, as opposed to the normal 5, and she does not gain a house. The cards in her hand are face down. Essentially, you take 2 cards from the deck and place them face down near the Automa's area. Now there is an odd-even card in the Automa cards. You're going to take this card, the odd-even card, and tuck it partially below the bottom of the board so that either odd or even sticks out, corresponding to whether there are most cards with an odd or even core value on the board. In case of ties, pick even. That side stays face up for the rest of the game. Note that 0 is an even number. Alright, so this odd even card, it's determining end game scoring for the Automa. And all you do is count the 8 cards that are on the board. If you have more even, then you use the even. If there are more odd, use the odd. And you can just tuck that anywhere on the board to remind you that they're going to be scoring for the even or the odds. And then there's a designer note in here for do not use house series in your first couple of plays. Alright, now we are getting into the solo gameplay. First up are the effects on the tall Automa from abilities you activate. So, when you activate a deploy ability that potentially lets you either steal a character card from Automa or force her to banish one, use the bottom card of her hand. Whenever Automa adds a card to her hand or returns one after revealing it, she places it face down on the top of her hand. If you activate an ability that allows Automa to gain something for free, she always chooses to do so. When you are revealing cards, some cards instruct you to reveal one or more cards. Normally, you must show the cards to the other players, but Automa does not care, so when playing against her, you must simply have the specified card or cards in your hand. Now, the Luna bonus card that we went over during setup, when Automa gains the Luna bonus, even if she does not actually get the Sovereign token, she also gains the bonus of the location indicated on the Luna card. So in this example, in the situation to the right, Automa places an influence token on the Institute when she gains the Luna bonus. So the Institute symbol was placed on Luna at that point, and they're going to get the Institute bonus when they go to Luna. Alright, now we're going to continue with the tall Automa takes a turn. So this is what they do when they take their turn. Automa takes her turn in the turn order as a human player, but you follow this procedure. 1. If there are no cards left in the Automa deck, form a new one by shuffling all the Automa deck cards, including those set off to the side previously, and set the topmost 4 cards off to the side like during setup. Next, on step 2, you're going to draw the 2 topmost Automa cards one at a time and perform the procedure below for each card in the order you drew them. Fully resolve the first card before resolving the second. This means that the Automa does 2 lead actions per turn instead of just 1 like you do, and she never scouts. So, step A, you will deploy the character. Place the top card of the character deck, not her hand, on the location chosen by the deploy section of the Automa card. She does not trigger the deploy ability. Just simply draw the card from the top of the deck, place it on that specific location in that section of the Automa card. Now the Automa is going to gain a character in the second section of the card, and Automa gains the top card of the location chosen by the gain section of the Automa card. Place it face down on the top of her hand. So you just pull the card, the top card, from the location depicted on the Automa card, and you put it face down in the pile in their area. Now you can do some extras, or you do the extras. If there is an icon in the extras section, do this depending on the icon. So if there is, Automa gains the bonus of the location from which she gained a card. So that's a star. So in the extra location, if there is a star symbol, you will, the Automa gains the bonus of the location from which she gained a card. So if you look at the section right above that symbol, they're going to gain that bonus from that location. Second would be banish the top card of the character deck if a X symbol is shown. So all you do is simply take the character deck on the board and you banish the top card from it. Not all of the Automa cards have a symbol in the extra section, but some of them do. Now, third, you're going to discard the 2 Automa cards. You are allowed to look through her discarded cards at any time. So remember that you drew 2 Automa cards for the Automa on their turn. So essentially you're going to deploy the character, gain character, and extras. You're going to do those twice. Now, note, unlike you, Automa can deploy to and gain from the same location in the same turn. Also, the Automa resolves both cards drawn even if the first triggers the end of the game. So they're going to resolve both of the cards even if the first one triggered the end of the game. Makes sense. Now, how does the tall Automa select a location? When the Automa is to select a location for deployment or gaining a character, use the deploy or gain section of the current Automa card as applicable and follow this procedure. So essentially all you're doing is following an arrow on this Automa card. I will go into the details here, but it is much simpler than they make it sound. So let's follow this procedure. 1. If the section has a location icon, Automa selects that location. If the section instead has a letter, she chooses the location that the priority card with that letter. Step 3. Empty locations can never be valid when gaining a character, so if the Automa selects one, do this. A. Look at the arrow icon and start at the location she selected. Move in the direction of the arrow until the first valid location is found. She selects that location instead. Wrap around the institute to Jupiter or vice versa as needed. 4. If she in any way would gain a bonus of which she already has 10 helium, position 10 on the fleet track, or 10 influence, she instead gains the bonus of another location. This does not change which card she gains. A. Use the tiebreaker arrows as in step 3 until she reaches a location with a bonus of which she does not already have 10. In case she gains the bonus via the Luna bonus card, she will still gain the sovereign token in addition to the substitute bonus. And they provide an example here. So on this example, they have the deploy section of the Automa card going to location B. All right, and it says, example, Automa is to gain a card at location B, which is Luna. However, Luna is empty, and so you must use the arrow of the current Automa card to pick another location. The arrow points to the right, and so you check the Institute, which is also empty, leading you to wrap around to Jupiter, which has a card. Therefore, Automa chooses Jupiter. Since her card has the star icon, she would then advance once on the fleet track because she ended up selecting Jupiter when gaining cards. Unless she was already at position 10, in which case she would follow the arrow to the right and take a helium if she did not already have 10 of those, and so on. So just to clarify this, so you are automatically going to pick the section on the Automa card if it is available. And if there is no card available, regardless of gaining a card or the bonus, you simply just follow the arrow to the next applicable area. Make sure she doesn't meet the over 10 for each of those bonuses. And that is the summary of the Automa turn. Let's get into scoring your solo round. Alright, so solo scoring. On normal difficulty, level 2, see difficulty levels, Automa gains points in the following way. 1. She has a base score of 70 points. Add points to that in the steps below. 2. Points for Fleet Track, Helium tokens, the Sovereign token, and influence as a human player. Instead of scoring her hand like normal, she gains the following. A. Cards in her hand are matching if their core value is odd or even, matching the visible word on the odd-even card placed during setup. Note that 0 is even. B. Otherwise, they are non-matching. C. Sort her cards into matching and non-matching. So essentially what this means is you sort from the even and odd numbered cards in her deck. If she had the even showing on the odd-even card, the even cards are matching. Reduce Atama's hand to 20 cards. Discard non-matching cards first, then matching till she has 20 left. Skip this step if she has 20 or fewer cards. Then E, she gains 6 points per matching card and 3 points per non-matching. Other difficulty levels change these numbers. So if you're on the normal difficulty on this scoring, so you're going to take all the matching cards, which are the either even or odd, and I'm just going to use this example. We have even matching cards. We're going to count as many as we can of those, all the way up to 20. If you don't meet 20 cards, then you start pulling the non-matching cards, which in this case would be odd, and then you score those depending on the difficulty level you are at. So her matching cards would be 6 points, and the non-matching cards would be 3 points. In the normal mode, they provide an example here. You are playing on normal difficulty level, and the even side is visible on the odd or even card. Atama has the 2 cards below and many others in her hand. Dancer scores VP for Atama because its core value is even, matching the odd-even card, and Harmony scores 3 VP because its core value is odd. Harmony has a 7 core value, and Dancer has 8 core value. Makes sense. Now let's get into the variant that was briefly touched on at the beginning. Using the characters that normally are removed, this optional variant provides rules that handle your deployment of 4 of the 5 cards that are otherwise removed from the game so that they can be included. Designer notes. Once you feel like the game and the Atama is running smoothly for you, we recommend that you use this variant. So the Auctioneer, which is a copper, roll the rising die until you roll a bonus which Atama can get. For example, not the Fleet Track. If she's already at position 10, she chooses that bonus. EO, red. Look at the 6 topmost cards of her hand, or all of them. If she has fewer, check for a red, then put the cards back down in the same order. Psychologist, which is yellow. For this comparison, Atama has the number of cards in her hand divided by 3, rounded down. This number is calculated before reducing her hand to 20 cards, and then you are sent to see the scoring. Now Roke, who is a gold. You look at the 6 topmost cards of her hand, or all of them. If she has fewer, when you are done, shuffle and return them to the top of her hand. We're going into the difficulty levels. You can choose the difficulty level you prefer from this table. 1 is the easiest, 6 is the hardest. I'm not going to list all the numbers on the difficulties. That is provided in the rulebook, but it is recommended you beginning at normal mode. And again, that's determining the points for the matching and non-matching cards, depending on if the odd or even is showing on that card. All right, that wraps it up for the periodic table of components for Red Rising by Jamie Stegmaier. I really enjoyed going through this one. The cards themselves are just awesome. The art on them and the characters and how they are depicted according to the story and the mechanics that went into it. and matching the story itself is just pretty amazing. You can tell that him and Pierce Brown worked well together in determining how the mechanics of these cards are working. So I just want to give a kudos to that, because I'm going to say that anybody who likes the story, Red Rising and that series, is going to enjoy this game. Again, thanks for listening. You can check out pictures of this game at Instagram, which is Periodic Table Picks. Look forward to hearing your guys' thoughts on Red Rising or anything regarding this episode. You can reach out to me on Instagram, again, Periodic Table Picks, and we will return to the lab here shortly for another episode of the Periodic Table of Components.